YouTubers and fellow computer nerds, welcome to episode 4 of trying to resurrect this old Teletek Systemaster S-100 single board computer and get it up and running. And there has been significant progress since the end of episode 3. The first 3 episodes were kind of taking baby steps and gathering information, and the 4th episode here is we're actually going to try and power this thing up and see if it works, and or see if we let the smoke out. You never know. But there's been a lot of progress. Like I said, the 8-volt power supply I was waiting on finally arrived, so that's in here. This is the 32-volt power supply that I have split and made into a plus and minus 16-volt power supply. I think I talked about how to do that in the last video or the one before, I forget which. And I found this. It is the power supply from a defunct HP printer, which I hung on to for no good reason, but apparently there was a good reason. Its output is 32 volts. So this will put out 32 volts. Now, I need plus and minus 16. 32 is twice 16. So I got to thinking, I could build something like this, and I could get plus and minus 16 volts out of that 32 volt power supply. Have the plus 32 volts coming in here, 32 volt return going back to the power supply, couple resistors as a voltage divider, center tap to ground this to the computer board. Do not ground this, of course. Ground this. A couple of electrolytic capacitors, and voila, I've got plus 16 volts and minus 16 volts with respect to ground. And I know this kind of looks all makeshift and bodged together, and hey, I'm not going to deny it. It is kind of thrown together quick. I just want to make sure that this thing works before I get elaborate with an enclosure and decent power supplies and neatening everything up and stuff. So I don't even know if this thing works yet. So, got to find that out. So I got the 2 power supplies. They're just mounted on this piece of wood with some Velcro. I did this just to kind of keep everything organized, so it can't move around. And the board itself is held on with some little clips I 3D printed. And I will give you a look at that design. And also, I kind of belatedly realized that if I want to hook up eventually a disk drive to this thing, either an actual 3.5-inch disk drive or a disk drive emulator, I'm going to need 5 volts. So there's plenty of room left on this board that I did the 32 volts to plus and minus 16 volts on. So I've got a 7805 voltage regulator on here. It's providing 5 volts, which I'll probably need in the future. Don't need it right now. I'm going to need to put a heat sink on this 7805, but right now there's no load on it, so I'm not going to worry about that at this moment in time. And I'm stealing power from the 8-volt power supply since it can do 3 amps, and the board only needs 2. So I'm stealing an amp from the 8-volt power supply. And let's see, I put some fuses in line with the 2 power supplies just because I have read bad things about trying to resurrect old computer equipment, things about capacitors that have gone bad and shorted across the power rails and things. Just in case, I'd rather blow a fuse than blow up the board. So I got a 3 amp fuse on the 8-volt power supply and a 3/4 amp fuse on the 32 volt power supply. And the only reason I'm using a 3/4 amp is because that's the smallest one I had in my collection. Really, 100 milliamps, 150 milliamps should be adequate. So, but we'll go with 3/4 of an amp. Let's see what else. There's plenty of room left on this board, like I said. What I will probably do in the future, I may add some LEDs on here just to for each of the different voltages. You know, one for plus 30, one for plus 16, one for minus 16, one for plus 8, and one for plus 5. Just so I can see it at a glance that I've got all 4 voltages are up on the board, and I'll know that the system is getting all of the voltages it needs. And you know, that's just for troubleshooting purposes, because when I start hooking stuff up to this, I know it's not going to go easy, and I don't want to have to wonder whether the voltage is there or not for something. So I will probably add some LEDs to that in the future. And I also got to thinking the other day, you know, I might have to add a reset button to this too, because I have no way to reset the system other than to pull a plug on it, basically. Or in this case, plugs, because each of these power supplies plugs in. What I'll be doing is I'll be plugging them into an outlet strip and just turning the outlet strip on and off to turn power on and off to this thing. So, like I said, there's been some significant progress. There's still things I want to do to it, but I've got to the stage where I can actually power it up and see if it's running. What I'll do is I'll power it up and I will probe around with my multimeter over here and make sure that we've got the voltages that we need where they need them. And then I will probe around with my oscilloscope and make sure that the CPU, let's see, that's the CPU right there, is getting a clock signal, number one, and number two, that there's some action on the address and data lines, because it should be going through some kind of loop waiting for input from one of the 2 serial ports. So it should be running. So if I see that, I know that it's up and running. So let me reposition the camera and we'll power this thing up and probe around and see what's going on. Hopefully we won't let the magic smoke out. Okay, here we go. I'll turn on the power strip. Alright, I don't know if that's showing up, but I got lights on both of the power supplies came on. Okay, so we're supplying power. Let's see, yeah, we're on the correct scale. Let's see, where are the power lines on the Z80? It's like, yeah, this diagram I printed out doesn't have pin numbers on it. It just shows the pin out. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Looks like 10 up from the bottom. Need to get a better pin out. 4.86. Okay, that's pretty close to 5 volts. I would say that the regulator's under load. Okay, so the Z80's got power. Let's get the oscilloscope over here. And let's see if there's any kind of activity going on with it. Okay, I hope that shows up. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can maybe see the oscilloscope screen. I probe around. Okay, so let's see here. Clock line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oops. I don't want to stay on there. I don't want to short one of the other pins. All right. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hey, we got a clock signal. I wouldn't call that a great square wave, but we got a clock signal there. All right. So the clock is running. Let's go down here and look at some of the data and address lines. Oh, okay. So we got lots of activity on the data lines. Great. So the processor seems to be running. Let me go over here and look at the address lines. Oh yeah. Okay, so the address lines, I've got lots of activity on them too. So it is running. All right. So she's up and running. I mean, it's not doing anything. It's just going through its whatever wait routine it's going through, polling the serial line, I'm sure. But that's really good news. Okay, so it's up and running. So the voltage seems a little low, but let me try something else. Let me. Yeah, the voltage, it's running a little low. Probe around on some of these other, well, not too bad. 4.91. Most of these, 4.89. Most of these 7.4 LS chips. The high number pin, it's like the further I get away from the regulator, the lower the voltage is. Yeah, look at that, 4.77 way over here on this side of the board. I think that's still, I'm trying to remember. Ooh, things are getting warm. Yowzers. Oh, wow. Okay, the regulator's getting really, really hot. Let me shut this doohickey down. Okay, so obviously I missed this little blurb in the manual before. It says forced air cooling is required. Yeah, and as hot as this regulator got, and it's still pretty warm. I can believe it. So, okay. I've got power to it. It seems to be happy. It's up and running. It's not dead. There was no smoke, so that's good. I'm going to have to provide some cooling, maybe mount a little fan right here that blows across the regulator anyway. I mean, nothing else seemed to be getting inordinately hot, but boy, the regulator, it got really, really hot. So I'm going to have to get some cooling. I may rework this board over here and put the LEDs on it like I said, although I see that pretty much as low priority. I didn't realize that the power supplies had lights on them. So that's pretty nice, but I might still add the LEDs to this. At some point I should probably put a reset button on it like I said, so I may work on that and wire it into the edge connector. And then, once I can run this thing for a while without worrying about the regulator overheating, I can try talking to the one of the serial lines here. And there seems to be, at least in my mind, mass confusion about which of these two serial ports I need to hook the terminal up to. Because I read different blog posts and I get different things, and it's clear as mud in the manual. So I suppose I'll just have to pick one, try it. If I can't get it to work, go to the other one and try it. And I'll probably have to switch around some control lines a little bit because, again, in the forums I've read, this thing can be persnickety about control lines. And yeah, and RS-232, data terminal equipment. Who remembers that stuff after all these years? You know, I'm just going to have to dredge that up out of the deep, dark depths of my memory and with the help of Mr. Google and see if we can get this thing up and running and talking. But at least it is running. So that's great news. It is running. It's not dead. I was worried that I had spent $100 on wall art, basically. That was all it was going to be good for. But no, it actually works. So, okay, so I've got my work cut out for me, as per usual, before the next episode of this. I gotta get the fan, maybe the LEDs, maybe the reset button, and get set up to try to hook up to the serial ports. Alright, it's been a good day. We'll be back next time, hopefully with more progress to show you. And thanks for watching. Subscribe to see future episodes. Press the little bell icon to be notified when they come out. Also, check out some of the other videos on my channel. I do a lot of other stuff like recovery of precious metals from electronic waste, which, you know, if this thing was dead, I probably would have done that to it, just got all the precious metals out of it. But it's not e-waste, it works. Give the video a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.